Back to this bitch that had a lot to say about me the other day in the press. Miley, what's good?
That single question, fired like a missile across the brightly lit stage of the 2015 MTV Video Music Awards, wasn't just the most viral moment of the night. It wasn't just another celebrity feud cooked up for clicks. It was a detonation, a cultural earthquake that exposed fault lines running deep beneath the music industry, revealing some pretty uncomfortable truths about race, power, and who gets to speak versus who gets silenced. Many saw a catfight, a few understood it was a coup. What if I told you, Miley, what's good, was one of the most calculated, strategically brilliant public chess moves in modern pop culture history? Stick with me, because we're about to peel back the layers. To really get the weight of those 4 words, Miley, what's good? Zrania, we've got to rewind. The year is 2015. Nicki Minaj is at the absolute peak of her imperial phase. A queen in a hip-hop world she's basically reshaped in her own image. Her album, The Pink Print, has been a massive critical and commercial success. The video for Anaconda, a vibrant, controversial, and undeniably impactful celebration of the female form, especially Black women's bodies, had shattered YouTube records and was dominating just about every cultural conversation. It was a genuine phenomenon. But the spark that actually lit the VMA fuse didn't drop on the awards show stage itself. Nope, it was ignited days earlier. Just weeks before, Nicki Minaj had gone on Twitter to voice her frustration after Anaconda got snubbed for Video of the Year by MTV. She pointed out a pattern she was seeing. If your video celebrates women with very slim bodies, you will be nominated for Vid of the Year. She went on, highlighting how Black women contribute so much to pop culture, but rarely get the credit or awards for it. This wasn't just about one award. It was a critique of systemic bias in the industry, a charge that the media often overlooks or downplays the innovations of Black female artists. Taylor Swift initially, and mistakenly, thought some of Nicki's tweets were aimed at her. That led to a brief public misunderstanding that was pretty quickly clarified and resolved. Nicki was clear her issue wasn't with another female artist, but with a flawed system. Meanwhile, in the same year of 2015, Miley Cyrus is in full-blown post-Hannah Montana rebellion. She's shed her Disney skin and is deep into her bangers era. This new identity was all about provocative performances, an edgy new style, and a heavy borrowing from Black cultural aesthetics. We're talking twerking, grills, and a sound soaked in hip-hop. This, by itself, was a huge point of debate, with tons of critics accusing her of cultural appropriation, essentially adopting the cool parts of Black culture without really understanding or respecting its origins or the people who created it. With Nicki's tweets about industry bias already causing a stir, Miley Cyrus, who was hosting the upcoming VMAs, got asked about Nicki's comments in a New York Times interview. Instead of acknowledging that Nicki might have a point about racial and body type bias, Miley decided to criticize Nicki's delivery. Cyrus said, "What I read sounded very Nicki Minaj, which, if you know Nicki Minaj is not too kind, it's not very polite." She then added, "I don't respect your statement because of the anger that came with it. You made it about you. Not to sound like a bitch, but that's like, I didn't get my VMA." This right here is so important. Miley Cyrus, an artist who'd built her current controversial brand on being provocative and anything but polite, and who was, at that very moment, generously borrowing from Black culture for her look and sound, was now tone policing a Black woman for speaking out about her experiences of being marginalized within that exact same industry. The irony was just staggering, and the disrespect was pretty clear. Nicki Minaj, a veteran in the game, was basically being told by a younger, white artist playing in her cultural sandbox that her very real complaints were invalid because she didn't say them nicely enough. This set the stage for a showdown that was about way more than just 2 celebrities not getting along. August 30th, 2015. The MTV Video Music Awards, the lights are blinding. The energy is absolutely electric. Nicki Minaj walks onto the stage to accept the award for Best Hip Hop Video for Anaconda. She gives her acceptance speech, thanks her fans, her pastor. And then, with that Moonman trophy in hand, she turns her attention, laser-focused, towards the show's host, Miley Cyrus, standing on another part of the stage. "And now," Nicki declared, her voice calm but with an undeniable edge of steel. "Back to this bitch that had a lot to say about me the other day in the press. Miley, what's good?" You could feel the tension in the air. The live audience gasped. Social media just exploded. Miley, visibly caught off guard, tried to recover, stammering something like, "We're all in this industry. We all do interviews. We all know how they all manipulate. Nicki, congratulations." Sources later reported that Miley was cursing in anger backstage after the moment, and that the confrontation was definitely not staged. Nicki had used one of the industry's biggest platforms, live television, to directly and publicly hold Miley accountable for her dismissive and frankly condescending words. The immediate media reaction was, as you'd expect, all over the place. Lots of outlets framed it as a catfight, sensationalizing the drama between two female stars. Some wondered if it was real or just staged for ratings. But for those who had been following the subtle details of the past few weeks, for those who understood the undercurrents of racial dynamics and cultural appropriation in the music industry, this was something far more significant. This wasn't just an outburst, this was a statement. Nicki Minaj's "Miley, what's good?" wasn't some impulsive clapback. It was a masterclass in strategic confrontation, a multi-layered power move that hit deep within cultural and racial contexts. Let's break down why this was so incredibly potent. First off, just think about the sheer guts and strategic genius of the setting. Nicki didn't just fire off a tweet or put out a carefully worded press release. She chose the VMA stage, a global platform with millions watching. She chose a moment where she was already a winner, literally holding her award to highlight her status and power. By confronting Miley live in person, Nicki grabbed control of the narrative. Miley had talked about her in the press indirectly. Nicki addressed Miley directly, face-to-face, forcing an immediate, unscripted answer. This was all about reclaiming her voice. Miley's comments in the New York Times had tried to paint Nicki as petty, angry, and self-absorbed, basically attempting to shut down her legitimate critique of industry bias. Nicki's onstage confrontation was a direct refusal to be defined and dismissed like that. It was a public announcement. "You will not speak about me without consequence. You will answer to me." This is where the secret power move really shows its depth. Back in 2015, Miley Cyrus was pretty much the poster child for a certain type of white pop artist who interacts with black culture in a way many find, well, extractive. She'd adopted black aesthetics, sounds, and dance styles to ditch her Disney image and rebrand as edgy and adult. Yet, when a prominent black woman, Nicki Minaj, spoke up about the systemic issues affecting black women in that very industry, Miley's response wasn't solidarity or understanding. It was dismissal and tone policing. Nicki's confrontation brutally spotlighted this hypocrisy. As Minaj herself later explained in a New York Times Magazine interview talking about Cyrus, "The fact that you feel upset about me speaking on something that affects black women makes me feel like you have some big balls. You're in videos with black men, and you're bringing out black women on your stages, but you don't want to know how black women feel about something that's so important," she went on. "If you want to enjoy our culture and our lifestyle, bond with us, dance with us, have fun with us, twerk with us, rap with us, then you should also want to know what affects us, what is bothering us, what we feel is unfair to us. You shouldn't not want to know that." Miley, "What's good?" became shorthand for a larger question to white artists and industries that profit from black culture. If you love the rhythm, why do you ignore the blues? If you want the style, why do you dismiss the substance and the struggle? In that moment, Nicki wasn't just talking to Miley, she was addressing an entire system that often celebrates black creativity while pushing black voices, especially black female voices, to the margins. The music industry, and the media in general, often loves to paint conflicts between women, particularly black women, as catfights or just baseless beef. It's a way to downplay their agency and how serious their concerns actually are. Nicki's move, though, went way beyond that. It wasn't just drama, it was a direct challenge to how black women are often expected to behave. Politely, quietly, without showing anger, even when they're being disrespected. Miley had called Nicki not polite and not too kind. This is a classic example of tone policing, a tactic often used to silence marginalized people by focusing on the way they express their complaints rather than whether the complaints are valid. The angry black woman is a widespread and damaging stereotype used to discredit black women's emotions and experiences. By confronting Miley so directly, yet with a kind of pointed calmness, Nicki flipped that stereotype on its head. she wasn't wildly screaming. She was asking a direct, though definitely loaded question. She was showing that a Black woman could be angry, could be confrontational, and could be entirely justified and powerful in doing so. She refused to be polite about her own dehumanization or the dismissal of her community's concerns. What do you remember about this moment? When you first saw it, did you think it was just VMA drama, or did you sense something deeper was going on? Let me know your initial reactions and thoughts in the comments below. And hey, if you're finding this breakdown insightful, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into iconic cultural moments. The Nicki-Miley clash wasn't just some isolated incident. It was a flashpoint that lit up ongoing, complex conversations within feminism and the wider culture, especially around intersectionality. That term, tone policing, like we talked about, is key here. It's a way those in positions of power or relative privilege deflect criticism from marginalized groups by zeroing in on the emotion of the complaint instead of its substance. When Miley told the New York Times that Nicki's approach wasn't polite and that she made it about herself, she was, whether she realized it or not, doing just that. She was centering her own discomfort with Nicki's anger over Nicki's actual message about systemic bias. This happens all the time to Black women who speak out against racism or sexism. Their righteous anger is often framed as aggression or irrationality, a way to avoid dealing with the uncomfortable truths they're bringing up. This also ties into the idea of white feminism versus intersectional feminism. White feminism often looks at gender equality from a mostly white, middle-class viewpoint, and sometimes doesn't fully address how race, class, sexuality, and other identities intersect with gender to create unique experiences of oppression for women of color. Nicki Minaj's original tweets were about the specific hurdles Black women face in the music industry, like their cultural contributions being devalued and the specific ways their bodies are policed or ignored by mainstream beauty standards. Miley's response, which seemed to skip right over this racial dimension and just labeled Nicki as not being a kind or polite team player, was seen by many as a classic example of white feminist cluelessness, or even worse, indifference to these intersectional issues. As one writer for the UMKC Women's Center put it, Miley's actions have blatantly displayed her lack of knowledge about the intersection of gender and race, and her lack of desire to learn. And what's more, the incident clearly highlighted the double standards of expression in the entertainment world. Miley Cyrus had built her entire Bangers and later Dead Pets era on being provocative, controversial, and far from polite. Her performances often featured overt sexuality, drug references, and a general, I don't give a fuck attitude towards traditional expectations. For her to then criticize Nicki Minaj for not being polite enough while voicing serious concerns about industry inequality struck a lot of people as deeply hypocritical. It suggested that being provocative and outspoken was fine, even celebrated, for a white artist like Miley. But when a Black woman like Nicki expressed anger or frustration about systemic issues, it was deemed inappropriate and unprofessional. This is a double standard Black women constantly have to navigate. The expectation to be strong but not aggressive, assertive but not angry, confident but not arrogant. The confrontation forced a public conversation, however awkward for some, about these dynamics. It wasn't just about Nicki and Miley, it was about who gets to speak, whose anger is seen as valid, and whose cultural contributions are acknowledged and respected. Miley, What's Good instantly became bigger than the VMAs. It turned into a viral sensation, sparking countless memes, merchandise, and endless online chatter. The phrase itself entered the pop culture dictionary as a sharp, effective way to call someone out. But beyond that immediate viral wave, the moment had a much more lasting impact. While some media outlets initially wrote it off as typical awards show drama, many cultural critics and commentators saw its deeper significance. Articles and think pieces popped up everywhere, analyzing the racial dynamics, the cultural appropriation, the tone policing, and the power play involved. It wasn't just a fleeting moment of celebrity beef, it became a teachable moment, a case study in how race, gender, and power intersect in the public eye, especially within the entertainment industry. Nicki Minaj herself didn't back down from explaining her actions. In her later interview with the New York Times Magazine, she clearly laid out her reasoning, as we mentioned earlier, stressing that those who engage with Black culture also need to be willing to understand and acknowledge the issues affecting Black people. Her words, "You can't want the good without the bad" became a powerful summary, capturing the idea that appreciating Black culture means more than just enjoying its aesthetics. It requires engaging with the full spectrum of Black experience, including the pain and frustration that comes from systemic inequality. Did it change the industry overnight? Probably not. Systemic issues are dug in pretty deep. However, the Miley "What's Good" moment absolutely contributed to a growing public awareness around issues of cultural appropriation and the ways Black women's voices are often marginalized or policed. It sparked more conversations. It provided a very public, very clear example of a Black woman refusing to be silenced or have her story controlled. Years later, the moment is still referenced and remembered, not just for its drama, but for its underlying substance. It stands as proof of Nicki Minaj's willingness to use her platform not just for entertainment, but for advocacy, no matter how confrontational that advocacy might seem. It highlighted the complexities Black women face navigating fame and demanding respect in industries that haven't always just handed it to them. Miley Cyrus, for her part, has continued to evolve as an artist. And while she hasn't really publicly revisited the incident in great detail in recent years, beyond her immediate VMA response, the exchange is still a significant marker in both their careers and in the broader pop culture landscape. You could argue it served as a learning moment, or at least a moment of stark public reckoning for many. The phrase itself, "What's good?" Zrenya has kept its power. It's a challenge, a demand for accountability, a way of cutting through the BS. And on that VMA stage, it was Nicki Minaj drawing a line in the sand, not just for Miley Cyrus, but for an entire industry. So, was Miley "What's Good" just a viral soundbite, or was it, as we've talked about, a meticulously aimed power move, packed with cultural and racial subtext? The evidence overwhelmingly points to the latter. Nicki Minaj didn't just create a moment, she crafted a message. She turned a personal insult into a public masterclass on respect, appropriation, and the power of a Black woman's voice. In those 4 words, she challenged Miley Cyrus's dismissive comments. She challenged the media's habit of trivializing the concerns of Black women. She challenged an industry that often consumes Black culture without truly valuing Black creators. And she did it all on one of the biggest stages, in real time, making it absolutely impossible to ignore. It wasn't just about an award or an interview, it was about dignity. It was about demanding to be heard, understood, and respected, not on anyone else's terms, but on her own. Nicki Minaj's secret power move wasn't really a secret at all to those who were truly listening. It was a bold declaration, a reclamation of power, and a question that keeps echoing. When you engage with a culture, when you speak about its people, are you doing so with understanding and respect? What's really good? This moment sparked so much debate, and the conversations it kicked off are still super relevant today. What are your biggest takeaways from the Miley "What's Good" incident? Share your thoughts in the comments. I do read them all. If you appreciated this deep dive, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration of a pivotal pop culture moment. Thanks for watching.